Welcome. In this video we identify and explain the principal piece of legislation regulating dust in our country. That is the National Dust Control Regulations of 2013, so that you know your rights and responsibilities when it comes to dust control, particularly if you are engaging in an activity that can generate dust. Welcome. My name is Sean McGregor of ecoleges Environmental Consultants based in Mpumalanga, South Africa. And we're on a mission to empower all South Africans to protect their environment through the correct interpretation and application of our environmental legislation. So if you want to learn how our environmental law applies to you and avoid unnecessary and costly mistakes, if you want to increase your knowledge and skills to reduce your reliance on external consultants, if you're in need of mentorship, or if you are a registered professional natural scientist wanting to earn CPD points, then you'll want to subscribe to this channel. You can swipe over the icon to the bottom right-hand side of your screen. Don't forget to click on the bell notification icon so that you can be notified the moment we upload a new video. And if you do know of anyone else who can benefit from these videos, we would sincerely appreciate your support or help in spreading the message by liking them. Thank you. So let's get started. The title of this video is Dust Yourself Off. The National Dust Control Regulations were published in Government Notice R827 on the 1st of November 2013 in terms of Section 53.0, read together with Section 32 of the National Environmental Management Air Quality Act 2004. Now those regulations came into effect on the same date that they were published, so that is the 1st of November 2013. These regulations are amazingly simple. They're only 5 pages long. It's wonderful. And all the provisions related to either dustfall monitoring or the implementation of dust control measures hinges on only 2 acceptable dustfall rates. There's an acceptable dustfall rate for residential areas and an acceptable dustfall rate for non-residential areas. But before we get into those, I first want to start off by providing the definitions for dust and dustfall. Dustfall is very simply the deposition of dust, and the standard test method for the collection and measurement of dustfall is ASTM D1379 1970. ASTM stands for American Standard Testing and Material. Dust, on the other hand, is a settlable particulate matter. Basically, it means any material composed of particles small enough to pass through a 1 mm screen, but large enough to settle by virtue of their weight into a sampling container from the ambient air. Just out of interest, what is the world's largest source of atmospheric dust? It is the Sahara Desert. And going back to the definition of dust, it doesn't then just mean or refer to the soil pulverized by vehicles driving on a dirt road. It can also include pollen and soot. I've spent quite some time in the southwest of Germany on the fringes of the Black Forest, and you'll be amazed during the early spring months at the millimeter thick layers or sheets of yellow pollen dust that settle outside on the verandas. It's quite a stark contrast to the millimeter thick sheets of black coal dust settling on the verandas of Witbank. As I said earlier, the dustfall standard comprises only 2 acceptable dustfall rates. For residential areas, the dustfall standard, represented by D, must be less than 600 milligrams per square meter per day, averaged over 30 days. The acceptable dustfall rate for non-residential or rural areas, like where I am now, must be greater than 600 but less than 1200 milligrams per square meter per day, averaged over 30 days. So I find it quite comical that anything below 600 in a rural area is unacceptable. Anyway, maybe that's something they'll consider revising or amending in the future. It is possible to exceed the dustfall rates at least twice a year, but not at least. It is possible to exceed the dustfall rates, but only twice a year and not in sequential months. Having said that, exceedance of the acceptable dustfall rate does not constitute an offence, and just out of interest, a person who is found guilty of contravening certain provisions within the national dust control regulations is liable to a fine not exceeding 5 million rand and or imprisonment not exceeding 5 years. So what exactly does then constitute an offence in terms of the national building regulations? National dust control regulations, I'm sorry. A person is only guilty of an offence if 1. He or she does not implement a dustfall monitoring program or submit a dustfall monitoring report upon being required by notice to do so by an air quality officer. 2. A person has exceeded the dustfall standard and then fails to submit a dust management plan within 3 months of the dustfall monitoring report, or fails to implement the dust management plan within a month of it being approved, or fails to submit an implementation progress report at the required intervals. And 3, if he or she fails to undertake continuous ambient air quality monitoring for PM10 upon being required by an air quality officer. In conclusion, you only commit an offence once you have disobeyed an air quality officer, not once you've exceeded the acceptable dustfall rate. Let me explain. You see, only upon being required through a written notice by an air quality officer who suspects that you are contravening the dustfall standard set out in Regulation 3, must a person then implement a dustfall monitoring program and submit a dustfall monitoring report within the specified period. And if the dustfall standard set out in Regulation 3 has been exceeded, then develop and submit a dust management plan within 3 months of submitting the dustfall monitoring report, and then implement the dust management plan within 1 month of it being approved, and finally submit implementation progress reports at the required interval. So you can see the whole sequence of events has been triggered upon being required through a written notice by an air quality officer. Our advice, and particularly if you are a construction contractor, for example, and you believe there is a reasonable chance of exceeding the dustfall standards set out in Regulation 3 for residential and non-residential areas, is to be proactive. And apart from implementing standard dust control measures, is to initiate the aforesaid process, including implementation of a dustfall monitoring program, and then take it from there depending on the results. And guys, that's it. I hope this was helpful, and thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you have joined the MP or Incorsi tiers of our membership program, then you will receive an additional video. We touch on other pieces of legislation that mention dust. We identify those few listed activities under NEMAQA that actually make reference to the dust control regulations, and we clarify what is particulate matter, particularly PM 2.5 and PM 10. If you haven't joined our membership program yet, then check it out on Patreon. Otherwise, if you're simply looking for a consultant to help you with the once-off project, you're welcome to visit our website. Please check out our previous video up here dealing with noise control. The next video, we explain the legal recourse following the unlawful commencement of a listed activity should you want to lawfully continue with that activity. Otherwise, subscribe, click on the bell notification icon. Don't forget to please like the video if you know of anyone else who can benefit. It'll help us spread the message. We appreciate the support. Thank you so much. Keep strong, and God bless.